Hey guys, welcome back to English is Easy. Today, I'm going to do something that I don't normally do. I'm going to tell you a true story from my life. It's the story of how I overcame a terrible fear of mine, the fear of public speaking. And I wanted to share this story with you guys because in the story, I'm going to share some very powerful strategies that you can use to become a more confident English speaker. So click like on this video, say hello in the comments, and let's jump in. I have always been a pretty shy person, pretty introverted. I remember even when I was a little kid, I was fine talking one-on-one with somebody. But if you put me in a big group of people, I would clam up. I would freeze up. I would get really tense. And I felt that my ability to express myself, my ability to contribute, right? My ability to say the things I wanted to say was very limited by my anxiety. I would just sit there quietly thinking of all the things I wanted to say, but was unfortunately too nervous to say. Around middle school, it started to get pretty bad. I was becoming very self-conscious. I would never raise my hand in class. I would rarely contribute when I had conversations with my friends. I really dreaded being called on. I was terrified of the teacher calling on me to answer a question in class. And if she did call on me, my face, would go bright red, my voice would shake, or I would just be unable to talk. And in high school, it only got worse. Well, when college came around, this anxiety, this fear reached its peak. I was absolutely terrified of speaking up in class, of raising my hand to ask a question. I would sit at the very back of the lecture hall, just hoping to remain invisible, hoping that nobody would notice me. I even had a panic attack. I remember one time sitting in a health class. There were so many people in that class. I think about 200 or 300 people in this big lecture hall, all crammed in there together. There were so many people that I could not focus on what the instructor was saying. All I could think about was how many people were around me. And if I wanted to say something, if I wanted to ask a question, how many people would hear me ask that question? I got to thinking about that, and my anxiety started to spiral. I was hyperventilating, sitting there, sweating, hyperventilating, and it was not good at all. And to make things worse, I had this big, important presentation coming up in my government class. I had to give a report on the European Union, this really advanced technical report, and I was required to speak in front of the class for 15 minutes. There were about 100 people in the class, and this presentation was only a few months away. So, as the days were ticking by, I was thinking about this presentation, getting more and more anxious, more and more worried, realizing that I had to do something about this problem. I was terrified. I knew I needed help. So I found this group called Toastmasters. I don't know if you guys have heard about Toastmasters, but it's a public speaking group that helps people overcome their fear of public speaking. And I found a meeting on my college campus, and I went. I remember that first meeting, there weren't even many people there. I think 15 people or so were at that first meeting I went to. But I remember sitting, like I always did, at the very, very back of the room, sweating, clammy hands, my heart just pounding, thinking about, what if they ask me to speak? What am I going to do? And at the same time, I was watching these people go up in front of the rest of the room one by one and give these beautiful speeches, and some of them were impromptu speeches, just speaking on the spot, which really blew me away. I couldn't imagine being able to do something like that. Well, I didn't speak at all during that first meeting. And actually, I remember the last 5 minutes of the meeting, they asked me to stand up, introduce myself, and, tell the room a little bit about me. And I just did this. I just couldn't even stand up and say my name. They asked me to speak, and I went, and they said, okay, that's fine, no worries. Well, I started going back to these meetings, and as time went on, I would go to a new meeting every week, slowly pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and I started to speak at the meetings. I was a terrible speaker, and I was shaking, and I was red-faced, but at least I was trying. I would get up in front of the room, I would try my best, and yeah, maybe it wasn't great, but I felt like I was making a bit of progress. Now, mind you, all the while this is happening, my big European Union class presentation is getting closer and closer. Now it's only a week away. I remember there was this night where I was eating pizza, I was watching YouTube videos, and I was just looking for advice on YouTube, advice about public speaking. And I saw this video, and I watched this video that changed everything for me. And this is what I really wanted to share with you guys today. The video said that there are two different ways to interpret the feeling you get when you are about to go and give a speech. In other words, there are two different ways to think about or understand this feeling you get before you go up in front of people and give your speech. The first way is, okay, I'm about to give a speech, and this feeling I'm having right now is nervousness. I am nervous to give this speech. But actually, there is another way, a second way, that you could interpret this feeling. And the second way to interpret this feeling is excitement. What if this feeling you get before you go and talk to a bunch of people isn't nervousness, but excitement, right? What if you are excited to share your thoughts and ideas and connect with people? What if it's not fear at all? What if it's just your brain looking forward to the experience, and you're looking forward to it so much that you have butterflies in your stomach and you're a little bit excited, right? This concept really blew my mind, and I started giving talks at my Toastmasters group using this mentality as a kicking off point. I wasn't afraid. I was just excited. I couldn't wait to share, and that's why I was shaking. That's why I was red in the face. That's why my hands were clammy. I was just really excited, right? I cannot emphasize enough how much adopting this way of thinking changed how I speak in public. Well, a week later, when I finally gave that speech in my government class about the European Union, I was blown away by what happened. I delivered the speech perfectly, and there was no part of me that was nervous or afraid, because I chose to interpret my feelings as excitement, as eagerness, as looking forward to the experience, right? Over time, by using this technique, I got more and more comfortable and confident with public speaking, to the point where now this is my other job besides YouTube. I'm a writer, I write kids' books, and I travel around to different schools giving talks to hundreds and hundreds of people in huge audiences. If I had a way of going back and telling my college age self, or my high school age self, or my middle school age self, that someday not only would I overcome my fear of public speaking, but I would do public speaking as a living, as a job, there's no way I ever would have believed it, because like I said, I couldn't even say my own name. I couldn't even introduce myself in class. I never imagined something I was so scared of could become something that I genuinely and sincerely enjoy and love to do. So, to all of my English learners watching this video, there are two things I recommend you do to massively improve your English speaking confidence. Number one is find a local Toastmasters group and start going to these meetings. Not only can you become a better public speaker, but you can become a more confident English speaker as well. It's really terrific speaking practice in the real world with real people. This video is not associated with Toastmasters. They're not paying me to say this. I just really think it's an amazing organization that helped me so much with my confidence. The second thing I want you guys to try is change your mentality. You are not scared to speak English. You are excited to speak English. If you can make that switch mentally, I guarantee you will see huge results. You are an amazing, intelligent person, and you deserve to be able to share your ideas with people. You deserve to be able to comfortably contribute to conversations without worrying about, your English speaking confidence. So, guys, by doing these two things, I guarantee there will be a big difference in the before and after. That's my story. That's what I wanted to share with you guys today. And guys, if you like this style of kind of laid back storytelling videos, let me know. Leave me a comment saying more like this below. And I'll see you very soon in my next video.